Thank you so much. It's great to be here. My name's Cameron. I am an alcoholic addict who doesn't drink or use. More affectionately, I'm an intelligent agent, spearhead of God's ever-advancing creation. And embracing the sacred and the profane, I am a God that shits. I don't know whether you guys really want to record that or not. So I opened with that passage because I'm going to talk about step one, and I will talk about the whole step process, but I'm going to mostly focus on step one because that is our foundation stone that motivates us to do the work that we do. And without that properly in place, somehow, some way, we get that lurking notion that we'll be somewhat immune to alcohol or to drugs or the acting out behaviors if you suffer from things like sex, love, fantasy, cutting, hoarding, gambling, whatever, food. There's another passage in the book that I often quote, and it is on page 94. The more hopeless the newcomer feels, the better they'll be more likely to follow your suggestion. So just to step one, we admit we're powerless over alcohol, drugs, acting out behavior, our lives are unmanageable. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? How do you know I'm powerless? How do you know my life's unmanageable? What does that look like? How do I know you're powerless? Your life is unmanageable. So we have this process in our rooms called identification, one addict with another. I'm like you. You're like me. You don't do it anymore. I want what you got. So often when I hear the war story being mentioned, and I always know I'm in for a long-winded war story when the speaker goes, I remember my first drink. I was in my mother's third trimester, and I realized I didn't drink like the other fetuses, and I thought, oh, God, here we go. I already know how to drink. I already know how to use. We all know that, right? Are there any novices here? Raise your hand if you need more intel on how to drink or use. So I don't know why they belabor, 45 minutes of the drunk-a-log. It's not really necessary, just enough to qualify, and I'll do that in a moment. So often when I'm in the rooms, I'll hear people identify, well, I used to prostitute myself. I lived on the streets. I've been to jail. Well, I've never done any of those things. So when I hear that as an identification, I think, well, maybe I'm not an addict. I remember I was doing a Unity share for CA many years ago, and this woman blurts out, well, I used to suck my dealer's dick for crack. I said, oh, honey, that doesn't make you an addict. Makes you a cocksucker, but it doesn't make you an addict. And the room went crazy, right? I know it's a little misogynistic, but, we may do those things while we're out there, but that's not what defines us as being addicts. And I think that disconnect can create a lot of problems. I'm an intravenous cocaine user. I love the needle. And so if I'm working with a marijuana addict and I start talking about how I mix up my rig and how I do it, are they going to be able to relate? They're going to look at me like I got three heads on. So, a behavior pattern can vary a lot within a particular addiction, like with drugs. There are a lot of different experiences and behavior patterns that go with drugs. In alcohol, I'm an everyday bourbon drinker. Now, I've worked with drunks who are wine drinkers only, beer drinkers only. I've worked with weekend warriors, binge users. I've worked with blackout drunks. I've worked with blackout drunks that smoke crack cocaine, not because they're crackheads. They smoke crack so they can drink longer. So behavior patterns can vary a lot within a particular addiction pattern. So the question is how do we relate? How do we discern, arm them with the facts about themselves if they be one of us? Because not everyone in the rooms is one of us. Just because my boss thinks I have a drinking problem because I wore a lampshade on my head at the Christmas office party doesn't make me an alcoholic. Doesn't make me a lamp either. So how do we go about it? And what I love about the big book, it's really specific on the instructions. On page XXVII, it says the message which can interest and hold these addicted people must have depth and weight. Well, what's the one thing we all share in common that we'd love to be able to do, but we can't do it? And by the way, this is universal. All addicts, whether you're a drug addict, an alcoholic, a food addict, cutter, hoarder, sex addicts, fantasy addict, gambler, they all have this one thing in common, this one thing that makes our stories have depth and weight, and that is lack of control. Because if any one of us could control what we love to do, would you be on this channel listening to this dickweed talk for 30 minutes? I don't think so, right? We'd be all out doing what we love to do. The book goes on to say, tell them enough about your drinking, using, acting out, habits, symptoms, and experience, get them, encourage them to speak about themselves. And it goes on to say, tell them how baffled you were, how you finally learned that you were sick. Remember that moment when you realized, I don't drink and use like my mates, right? I remember when in my 20s, I worked in the financial district of Toronto, and during the day I was in a 3-piece suit. The women were in their finest business attire. And every Friday night there'd be a party, a very posh, luxurious party. This is the mid 80s. In some condominium or some home. And we'd all show up, and I'd be in my suit, and the men would be in their suits from the day's work, and the women in their finest business attire. And we're in this posh place, and there's lots of drinking and lots of cocaine, good cocaine. That's when Escobar was running thing. It was good fucking coke. And I'm sitting on the sofa, and this guy says, hey, Cameron, would you like a couple lines? I said, I'd love to do a couple lines. So as he's cutting me out a couple lines, I take my jacket off. I roll up my sleeve. My arms, I never wore short sleeve shirts. My arms are covered in track marks. And I throw a rig on the table, and I start mixing up a spoon. And the party stopped. It went dead quiet. The hostess walks up and goes, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm going to do my lines. She said, you can't shoot up in the middle of our little party like some junkie. I said, what? You're judging my delivery system? Is this what we're talking about? And I was politely escorted to the door with my lines, of course. And as I'm leaving, I'm thinking, I don't drink and use like these people. There's something different about the way I go about it. Remember that point when you hit that? There's something not right with me. And then it says, give them an account, give the newcomer an account of the struggles you made, but failed to stay permanently abstinent, and show them how the mental twist, how our mind lies at us, that always takes us to that first drink, first drug, which puts us on the spree. Now, there's a great passage in the doctor's opinion that I use. This is my qualifying paragraph. This is my 3-minute elevator talk when someone says, are you really an addict? So it says men and women drink essentially because they love the effect produced by alcohol, produced by cocaine, produced by whatever, right? I worship the God of alcohol. I worship the God of cocaine, the God of marijuana, the God of LSD. I worship that God from the age of 20 to the age of 46 because I love the effect of those sacraments. You know, when I bang really good coke and get that ringer, man, like that's a pretty powerful sacrament to indulge in. I love the effect. Is that what you do? Do you love the effect? Now, some newcomers might say, no, I don't like it anymore. I hate it. What they're really saying is they don't like the consequences, but they love the effect, right? And the sensation is so elusive that while they admit it is injurious, I'm assuming everybody here today admits whatever your addiction is, it's injurious to your health. And if that's a yes, but we can't differentiate the true from the false. Well, what does that look like? Well, our book talks about the mental blank spot, the strange phenomenon that parallels our sound reasoning. I call it the liar. I got a liar that lives in my head, and the liar loves drinking. The liar loves to use, and it doesn't want to give it up. So built this research institute in my brain called Bullshit Inc., hired the best lawyers, screw you, screw me, screw everybody, to work out reasons, justifications, and why I should be able to pick up a drink or a drug, and somehow, some way, I'll be able to control and enjoy it. And here's the rub. The liar always won the argument. You all relate to the liar that lives in our head, winning that argument every time? Anyone ever go to their dealer lying? I don't want to go. Yeah, you do. No, you don't. Yes, and we always end up there, right? I used to tell my dealer, I'm only here for a gram. He'd start laughing. So I got this liar that lives in my head that always wins the argument. Now, untreated. What am I like untreated? Well, I'm restless, I'm irritable, I'm discontented, I'm bored, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. I don't like feeling that way. So what do? I drink bourbon, I smash cocaine, I smoke really good dope. Why? Because it alleviates what ails me. Drinking and using is not my problem. It's my solution. And that's an important distinction for us to recognize. It is my solution to that restless, irritable disposition that I don't like. Running out is a problem. So it goes on to say that to them, their alcoholic addict life seems the only normal one. It is normal for me to be high or drunk. It is not normal for me to be straight. I did not like that because I was restless, irritable, discontented. Now, in the beginning, when I drank or used, remember when we first started drinking and using, what an amazing experience that was? It was lots of fun. It was lots of excitement, you know, and I could take it or leave it for the most part in those days. But as the illness rolls out and progresses, it went from being all fun to fun with problems. And then in the end, oh my God, what have I got? Why can't I stop? And, you know, it goes on to say that unless this person can again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which comes at once by having a few drinks or drugs, which I see others doing with impunity. My wife's what I call a JDD girl. She says, just don't drink, Cameron. Just don't drug. You know, that really is the answer, but I can't seem to implement it. You know, when my wife has a drink, she gets a little nauseous. She gets a little sleepy. She doesn't like that. She just stops. I never got that experience when I have alcohol in my system. But I see her doing it with impunity. My liar says, oh, you're a lot stronger than she is. You got more resolve than she has. You know, you can pick up a drink now. It's been 21 years since I've had a bourbon. I should be able to go to the bar and somehow safely consume it. And after I've succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, you know, and I've done that relapse after relapse for 26 years. And that's been my experience, the phenomenon of craving. Now, here's what happens in the end. I'd like to tell you, I'm just going to go to the pub, have a pint, maybe a couple shots of bourbon and go home. That's what I really believe I'm going to do. But once I start, this phenomenon of craving of more comes on, and it might last a night. It might go on for a day, a week, a month, a year, maybe longer. I have no idea. I don't know how long I'm going to be consuming. And then at some point, after there's been so much carnage, so much of a debacle, I come up for air and go, oh my God, I can't go on like this. And I make a promise, an oath, a resolution, I'm not going to do it again. We've all done that, right? And I know if they hooked up lie detector tests, it would be truthful. Yeah, I really mean it with all my resolve. I don't want to do it anymore. But here's the problem. I can't live with the booze and the drugs anymore, but I don't know how to live without them. So I'm told, go to a meeting. Unfortunately, I went to one of those open, disgusting meetings where there's no big book, no solution, just group therapy without a therapist and an incessant Oprah wine fest. And it's problem. By the end of the meeting, I'm a psychological casualty. I got no way to leave that room with any viable solution. And now I need a meeting to fix the meeting I was supposed to get it at, right? You ever been to one of those meetings? I always get in trouble when I say this, but I'd rather masturbate with a handful of broken glass than to go to a meeting like that. Like, they're awful. And yet they're still out there. Now, here's what happens when I'm in a meeting like this. I enter into what I call satiety. I get restless. I get irritable. I get discontented. I get bored. I get depressed. And the liar comes out of remission and says, Cameron, this isn't working. We need our solution. And the liar wins the argument because I got no defense against the liar. And I succumb to the desire, and out I go. To go around that wheel of misfortune, spree, remorse, resolution, pursuing the love of my addiction to the gates of insanity or death. Raise your hand if you know someone who's died from addiction. Go ahead, raise your virtual hand or your hand, right? We all know at least one. In 21 years, I have buried 49 people that I've worked with directly, could not and would not see our way of life. 38 overdoses, mostly to alcohol death, 9 suicides, 2 were murdered. And suicides in our rooms are bad. Some people don't succumb to the desire again. Some people just sit there in sobriety and go insane. And the suicide rates in 12 steps today is 80 times higher than normal society. An untreated alcoholic or addict in the first 5 years of abstinence is 80 times more likely to commit suicide. That's in the Oxford Handbook to Psychiatry. That's a real problem, and that's the horror of our step one experience. I will drink, and I will use again, and for me to drink and use again is to die. Thank God I did find a meeting where I met someone who was armed with the facts about themselves. They understood what it meant to be an addict, what qualified them an addict. More importantly, they had a solution, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and a generosity of spirit. And we didn't go to a meeting. We went to a coffee shop. We opened up Big Books and we started doing instructions. And I had a profound alteration in my reaction to life. And I've done more in the last 21 years than I did in my first 46. Rebuilt a marriage. My wife and I are celebrating 35 years of marriage this year. I have a beautiful relationship with my 39-year-old daughter, my 42-year-old son. I was just made a grandfather again. Oh my God, Vera Lynn, she's 9 months. I saw her yesterday. Was not prepared for how that little girl stole my heart. You know, I love the effect of alcohol and drugs on my life so much, I'm willing to risk my life. And I had liver disease. My liver went back to normal after 6 years. There's a line in the book that says, go out and see what other religious people are doing. So I thought, I'll go get a degree. So I enrolled in the University of Toronto and did a degree in medical anthropology and religions. Graduated at the top of my class, 10th Ivy League university in the world. Turns out I'm brilliant. And I travel all over the world speaking in CANA. Man, what a great life being a member of Cocaine Anonymous is. I'm an addict who doesn't use, and it's pretty amazing what you can do when you're not out there either looking for drugs, getting higher drugs, and getting higher on more drugs. It's a pretty amazing experience. But it's predicated on our step one. And, you know, most addicts have to be pretty badly mangled before they'll come into the room seeking a solution, right? You know, most addicts were barely toilet trained apes. We eat, we shit, we fuck. That's about all we're good for. And we're not even good at that, right? But this program is about something that we're going to transcend that reptilian brain and go for something different. We're going to go for a different kind of dope, the God dope, the spiritual dope. It's a spiritual ringer every time I connect to it. But it's predicated on being clear that there's no lurking notion that I can be immune to drugs or alcohol ever again. So I use this analogy with addicts. How much time have I got left here? It's 2:59. What's my deadline? 3:15?
You have 30 minutes, Cameron.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not quite sure how much time I've used. You guys just give me a 5-minute heads up warning. So I use this analogy when I'm discussing step one. What does it mean to be powerless? What it means to be unmanageable? So as addicts, we're like drowning men and women. We know we're drowning. And we see a log floating on the surface. I think, you know what? I'll swim to the log. The log will hold me up, keep my head above water. I won't drown. But when I reach the log, it's slimy. It's slippery. So as a power, it might keep my head above water a night, a day, a week, a month, a year, maybe longer. But at some point, it fails me. I slip and drown. Now, logs are best described as easier, softer ways, human solutions, human aids, half measures, middle of the road solutions, easier, softer ways, right? Now, I go through what I call a log list. This illustrates my powerlessness. Share with the newcomer all the different strategies that you failed at. So the first log I ever burned was the willpower log. Just mustering up my willpower not to do it. We've all tried that, right? Did it work? It's a log. It doesn't have the necessary power. And along with that comes resolutions, oaths, promises, contracts. That didn't work. Controlled using. How many tried the controlled using log? I'm just here for a gram. He'd laugh at me because 10 minutes later I'd be back for another gram and then another gram. That didn't work. Harm reduction. Harm reduction's big in Canada. I don't know whether you got it over there, but harm reduction. Yeah, sign me up. I just won't do as much. But that didn't work out. Ill health, sickness. I had liver disease. That didn't stop me from drinking. Sharing dirty needles with people when AIDS was just coming out. That didn't stop me. Thank God I dodged that bullet. Ominous warnings from the doctor, the judge, the lawyer, the employer, the priest, the rabbi, the counselor. They all failed as logs. Change of environment, triggerless. I'm a wake and baker. Who are the wake and bakers? Just waking up's a fucking trigger. How's that going to keep me, like, oh my God, triggerless. I moved from Toronto to Burlington where my parents lived in my 20s when I hit my first bottom. Do you know they had bars and drug dealers in my mom and dad's old hometown? I sobered up for like a week. Then we got counseling, therapy, group therapy, behavioral modification. I did 10 years of Gestalt therapy. Great stuff, but it never kept me sober. War stories, fear, horror. My own war story doesn't keep me sober. You think your war story is going to keep me sober? I have so much fun on this. When I'm working with newcomers, I'll say, I don't think you're going to make it. In fact, I'm pretty sure you're going to die. And I'm going to come to your funeral, and I'm going to have free sandwiches, and then I'm going to bang your wife. Oh, do they get upset? They get right wound up. One guy goes, whoa, hey, Cameron, you haven't seen my wife. But now the kids are so young coming in. Like I'm meeting 21, 22-year-old kids. I can't really get off on that joke. So I'll say, I'm going to come to your funeral, have free sandwiches, and then I'm going to bang your mother. Oh, man, do they get wound up. But it's a log. It doesn't sober them up, like, right? The memory fades. Relationships, I tried sobering up for my wife, my children. I love my wife. I love my children, but they do not have the power to keep me sober. I tried getting animals, get a dog, get a cat, be responsible to the animal. That'll save me. That didn't work. Going to church and praying like hell, but faith without works is kind of a dead proposition. Having a sponsor, that didn't work. I am not the power. I will fail you. I won't be there when you need me the most, or I'll say something to piss you off, right? They should have a trigger warning before I speak. 90 meetings, 90 days, right? I went to lots of meetings, but they did not have the necessary power. I might have met some people with the power there, but I didn't get power from those meetings. Yesterday's spiritual experience. I couldn't stay high on yesterday's gram of cocaine. And I can't stay sober on yesterday's spiritual experience. Every day I got to seek the God dope, the spiritual dope. Where is God in my life today? What must I do in the application of a spiritual moral program? Open the door to tap that spiritual power deep down within myself so that I can easily control my desire to drink, use, or act out. Self-help books, personal development courses, recovery movies. We've seen them all, right? Train Spotting. When that baby's crawling across the ceiling, man, that's an intense scene, but that didn't sober me up. Recovery knowledge, recovery slogans, recovery memes, like recovery tattoos. I see people with tattoos down their arms, and they got their date, and they got a line through it, then they got another date, there's a line through it, they got another date, there's a line through it, like, recovery tattoos. Oh my God. Poetry. We read poetry in our rooms here in Toronto. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yesterday's the day that's come and gone, so why worry about it? Tomorrow's the day that's not here. We don't need to worry about it, but there is one day today. Just for today, any one of us can fight the battles of one day. And I go, yeah, but not on fucking payday. I could never stay sober on payday, right? Recovery. Poetry. Oh, frothy emotional appeals. Positive thinking. Some people go, oh, Cameron, you're so negative. I need someone who can be more positive in my life. I said, well, I can be positive. They said, really? Yeah, I'm positive you're going to relapse. And they get all wound up, right? Guilt, shame, remorse, that never kept me sober. Good days, bad days. When's the best day to get high? Every day. And the best day to get high on was a good day. Like, oh my God, good days, bad days. Having money, no money, keeping busy. They were logs. Memory strategies. Remember when? Think. Play the tape all the way through. Why don't they work? Why do we always remember when afterwards? Because who's running our brains untreated? The liar. And the liar always wins, right? And it goes on, we got jail, incarceration, good reasons to stop, sufficient reasons to stop, consequences. They didn't have any power to keep me permanently sober. This log and loser list that I'm going through won't keep me sober. Moral and philosophical convictions, suffering, humiliation, pitiful, incomprehensible, demoralizing experiences didn't stop me. Sobriety time, having a certain amount of sobriety time never kept me. I was sober for a year only to relapse, right? And then exercise, hydrotherapy, colon cleansing, they don't work. They're good things to get, but they never kept me sober. Now, here's the great thing about a log list. It illustrates all the human, secular, and psychological approaches that fail to keep me permanently sober. I need a permanent solution. I don't need a temporary one. I need a permanent solution. And this list, which I find fairly exhaustive, pretty much describes my state of powerlessness. Now, what's great about a log list, and I'll post a link in the chat if you like this approach and you want to try it on a prospect, it's universal. All addicts, whether they're drug addicts, alcoholics, sex addicts, food addicts, cutters, hoarders, gamblers, whatever, they all burn the same logs. So as a way to identify, hey, I'm like you, you're like me, I can identify on the powerlessness quite clearly with any kind of addict using a failed strategy approach. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't my log list that drove me in the rooms, because people would say, Cameron, are you an addict? Oh, you're bloody right, I'm an addict. Now let's go get high. It was the second part of step one, the unmanageability, the internal unmanageability and the external unmanageability, which I call the loser list. What am I losing when I'm out there drinking and using? And the loser list, I lost time, family, spouse, children, friends, money, home, health, safety, hygiene, opportunities, education, quality of life, hope, courage, intelligence, my mental acuity, my self-respect, respect from others, self-esteem, self-confidence, self-improvement, self-control, emotional security, responsibility for myself, my responsibility to others, my volition to form motives, my agency to make it happen, reputation, freedom, morality, spirituality, God, peace of mind, sanity, faith, and humanity. The only thing I didn't lose was my life, and those are the big losers. And so when I go through this loser list, I realize I am a loser without some kind of real power to easily control my desire to drink and use. And what's great about a loser list, all addicts, regardless of their addiction pattern, lose the same things pursuing their solution of drinking and using to the gates of insanity or death.
3 minutes coming in. 3 minutes left, mate.
Thank you so much. So I can win the confidence of an addict entirely within a couple of hours of just sharing my log and loser list with them and them going through theirs with mine, and get that all important identification. I'm like you, you're like me, but you're an ex-problem addict and you don't do it anymore. How is that possible? Well, I found a power that lets me easily control my desire to drink, use, or act out. It's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm willing to show you how to work it. And we can start that journey with winning the newcomer's prospect on that amazing journey. Now, I'll conclude with this. I have worked with over 15,000 addicts in 21 years. I keep track of everyone I work with. I do a workshop, 12 steps, 4 hours, where I take people through all 12 steps in 4 hours. We've done over 15,000 people. Out of that, I've taken 469 through the 12 steps in a one-on-one approach, which takes me 7 to 10 days to do. It's about 14 to 16 hours. And like I said, I buried 49 out of that mix, and get them on that journey of finding power. And our solution's always the same. Where's the power? Deep down within us. That's a paradox, the great reality. Step 3, we take the red pill like in the Matrix. Wake up, see how deep the rabbit hole goes. In 4 and 5, we get right with ourselves. In 6 and 7, we get right with God. In 8 and 9, we get right with others. And it rockets us into that 4th dimension of existence. And then we got the disciplines of 10 and 11 are designed for living without alcohol and drugs that really works. And then having had the experience, we carry the message to the addict that still suffers and practice these principles in all our affairs. Good balanced program. I take care of family first, then my work. So I'm self-supporting to take care of family. Part-time, spare time, I carry the message, the addict that still suffers. It only takes a few hours to learn how to work a 12-step program, the rest of your life to practice it. So when you hear the addict crying out from the hole, what should you do? Jump into the hole with them, because you're armed with the facts about yourself. You've got a common solution in the big book. And though you can turn to the person in the hole saying, now we're both stuck in the hole, but we can look at them with a wink in our eye and say, I've been here before. I got a way out. I'm a way out with more hope, faith, and courage. A way out to walk hand in hand with the sunlighted spirit. A way out to be intelligent agents, to be spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation. And I'm for that. How about you? God bless. See you on the firing lines of recovery.